Hey, listeners, welcome back to Nonstop Nonprofit. Very excited for today's guest with us. Today is Shannon. Shannon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's kind of chilly up here in New Jersey, but it's not too bad.
I can only imagine, especially compared to Southern California.
It sounds nice.
So very excited to kind of jump in and talk about an exciting new partnership between Springboard and Funraise. But before we do that and talk a little bit more in detail about peer-to-peer fundraising, I'd love it if you could just provide a little background to our listeners about yourself, your background, and what you do with Springboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I always knew that I wanted to work to make the world a better place. I moved around a lot as a kid, and that gave me a really unique perspective in seeing that not everyone had the same opportunities based on where they live and who they were. And so, in college and kind of starting out in my career, I just, wanted to do what I could to make the world a more equitable place. But specifically kind of starting out in fundraising, it was actually one of those flyers that I saw on college campus that says work to save the environment, and ended up knocking on doors in the summer in Washington, D.C., raising money for an environmental organization. It was by far the hardest job that I've ever had in my life. Not only because, it's summer in Washington, D.C., but asking for money is hard, especially as an introvert. But I think it kind of, I don't know, I think it set the stage, for the next 20 years in my career, and just really enjoying talking to people about causes that I'm really passionate about and getting them excited about it too. From there, I went on to do some political fundraising and organizing, and ended up, in the mid 2000s working for an organization that was doing digital fundraising and advocacy for nonprofits. And so this was really kind of, after like the Dean campaign that really saw, the growth of digital fundraising, and nonprofits were really looking to like, how can we capitalize on email, and, Facebook was just out and just kind of doing invites at that time. And since then, I've been, working with nonprofits, both, on the consulting side as well as clients, and have been really honored to work for some tremendous organizations like the ACLU, the Clinton Foundation, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, in helping them really use the digital space and platforms, seeing what is out there, what's coming out, what works for their audiences to, grow their supporter base and raise money, and obviously ultimately further their mission to, make the world a better place. And about 6 years ago, I joined Jackson River, which is the builder of the Springboard platform, which we'll talk a little bit about, because I wanted to continue helping other nonprofits, find the right tools and implement the right systems to be able to use this space in a way that works best for them. And the Springboard fundraising advocacy engagement platform is just a really tremendous tool. And I knew the people that had founded the organization. I'd worked with them in the past. And one of the founders was actually one of my first bosses in 2006. Wow. So I've kind of been in the small world for a while, and, just really look to helping more organizations find the right tools. At both the ACLU, the Clinton Foundation, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I'd gone through a number of projects in which we were tasked to find something better because our tools weren't working. We weren't able to communicate with the right supporters. We weren't, asking for the right amounts. We weren't growing our lists. We weren't able to do some of, the fun and innovative campaigns that we were seeing others doing. And there were a lot of, mistakes learned, or mistakes made and lessons learned, during those processes of finding email tools, finding new fundraising tools, finding new advocacy tools. And so I was kind of excited to be able to bring a lot of those experiences and lessons learned to help other organizations, with those decisions, as well as implementing those tools. It's a huge project. It's more than just build it and they will come. It really requires, the entire organization to adjust their thinking and adjust their approach to marketing and fundraising, back end staff and, front end and all of that. So, it's been really a pleasure and an honor to be able to work with the clients that Springboard supports. And, especially as you mentioned, this recent partnership with Funraise in expanding our peer-to-peer offering. So beyond some of the fundraising tools and tactics that Springboard offers, including like a very robust, fundraising sustainer fundraising offering and tools, integrations with CRMs, advocacy, both the, federal, state, and local level. Peer-to-peer is kind of where we see a lot of growth and a lot of potential to help organizations, including existing clients, of course, new clients, as this kind of digital world grows. And also, it's not just online, it's, when you're looking especially at peer-to-peer, offline events, races, kind of virtual events, all of that is all becoming more integrated.
Absolutely. It sounds like your career kind of spans the like pre-digital adoption of fundraising. And then, as you progressed in your career, you started to see, more giving come online. I'm just kind of curious, like, as you look back on your career and as you look forward on where fundraising is going, what are some of like the key changes that you've seen that have made a very positive impact on the overall philanthropic community?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in the kind of mid 2000s, email was king, and it's been kind of interesting to see a little bit of, the progression from email, using social media, text messaging, like all of the digital channels out there. And then I'm seeing more and more newsletters and blogs come back, which, I remember from, 2007, that was really being king. And I think also learning that digital is a tool. It's not just like an end. It's a way to communicate, and kind of seeing the progression of, that there's only unique ways to fundraise digitally, but it's part of like a holistic way to communicate and market with organizations. So it used to be very siloed. I think the digital fundraising and advocacy that, you had your own little department and you just sent out emails. Yeah. But what I've really seen grown is that and someone likened it. I remember that, organizations used to have like electricity departments, and, that now it's a part of communicating. It's a part of fundraising, and it's a part of marketing. And it's just one of the many channels and, ways to connect with supporters out there. So when we're looking at marketing and fundraising campaigns, it's looking at physical advertisements, it's looking at, phone campaigns, it's looking at direct mail campaigns, social, SMS, advertising, and if all of that is built in, particularly in this direct marketing world. It's a part of it. And, digital describes, a lot of different aspects of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's better to really look at it holistically, but there are, specific tools that are part of that entire ecosystem. Though we are seeing, more and more integrations of that, particularly as organizations are trying to get hold of or understanding their data, as these, they're getting different sources, from direct mail, from phone, advertising, like how do you really connect all of that? And so we're seeing some of the tools, and Springboard's actually really great at that. And, we have phone call centers that are actually inputting donations into Springboard, which then goes into the CRM, so that's also collecting donations that are coming from ads, that are coming from emails, that are coming from social. So
awesome. No, yeah. Thank you for that. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, obviously, like, we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about peer-to-peer fundraising. And for those listening and wondering what is peer-to-peer fundraising, simply it's an opportunity or a way to activate your supporters to get involved and allow them to fundraise on your behalf. Most of your supporters are likely have friends and family members that would be happy to contribute. to the causes that you care about. And so peer-to-peer fundraising gives your supporters a way and a tool to actually reach out and raise funds. About 6 months ago, Funraise and Jackson River Springboard started talking about a partnership. So could you maybe share a little bit more why peer-to-peer fundraising was and is an important aspect of, or important feature that you'd like to offer your customer base today?
Yeah, I mean, peer-to-peer, as you're talking of just like asking friends and family to raise money on behalf of organizations that you care about, has always kind of been part of philanthropy, whether it's, selling chocolate bars at school or, inviting friends to an event. And, as we're looking at these tools as part of the bigger philanthropy and fundraising ecosystem. We know how important it is to be able to reach supporters and potential supporters where they're at. And they're on Facebook, doing Facebook fundraisers around their birthday for causes that they care about. They're training for marathons and raising money for causes that they care about. Like this is happening, and it's a huge opportunity for nonprofits to find supporters where they're already at and where they're willing to raise money. And it's a really great opportunity to build momentum and community and campaigns, for new time-based events, giving days for events, around, unfortunately, like if there's disasters, people want to help. And, by not kind of providing the avenue or the channel to do that, organizations are missing opportunities to reach more people ultimately, not just in fundraising, but in able to, raise money to help more people.
Absolutely. Yeah, speaking to like the community aspect of it, we have a customer, they're called Thorn, and they just did a pretty big peer-to-peer campaign around the New York Marathon. And it was in partnership with Peloton, actually, and it was really cool. They ran it on Funraise, and Ashton Kutcher was actually the kind of like the figurehead of the campaign. And basically, like it was like a month leading up to the New York Marathon, which was just a couple weeks ago. Basically, like he was training with Peloton instructors, and then would also bring in another celebrity, and just really created this like really kind of cool, fun environment and community to bring people in. And like the whole kind of like theme of like the conversations were like, what's your why? Like, what do you care about? What's important to you? And then they ran the marathon, of course, and they raised over $1 million in like 30 days. And it was all done, through peer-to-peer fundraising. And so when you said something along the lines of it's a great way to kind of inspire the community and to build community, that's what peer-to-peer does at its finest. Is it builds the community, and it also gives the community something to rally behind and support. And so I'm curious, as you look towards 23, how do you see peer-to-peer playing a role in a potentially downturned economy, going into a potential recession? How do you look at peer-to-peer fundraising and through that lens?
Yeah, I mean, it is a way to diversify fundraising. And actually going back to your example that, around the New York City Marathon, I've spoken to a couple nonprofits recently who are, looking to 2023 to build those communities around giving days that they have. And they have supporters for their organizations that are tremendously invested. These are often like chapter organizations. And so they have local communities, so they know people that they would be fundraising with. And one of the reasons that they're really excited about peer-to-peer is because it offers them a place to build that community and to really kind of support and encourage and empower supporters where they're at, whereas it was always kind of, it's a little disjointed in, each chapter kind of raising money and then being able to showcase that using a platform, with Springboard and Funraise, it allows the community kind of across the country in all of those chapters, to see what everyone else is doing and to be able to hear those stories, of why this organization is important to them, how is it meaningful? And so you can see it, not only within your community and your chapter, you can see it kind of across the country, and how that's really building towards something that's incredibly impactful, when you're looking not only at the dollars raised, but then organizationally, like how that organization is using the money to, actually impact real people and help others. So I've heard that a couple times just in talking with organizations towards the end of this year. And so looking to expand on those Giving Day opportunities, to bring it, online, and engage people where they're at. And then just to have more visibility kind of across chapters. I think folks are tremendously excited about.
Absolutely. I think there's, when you're having like broader conversations with just organizations, nonprofits, one of the common objections you hear is, oh, like, no, our donor base, doesn't do peer-to-peer. Like, they wouldn't be activated to fundraise and ask people, they're not like professional fundraisers, trained professionals, whatever the excuses might be. But if you take a step back and look at like, what is the number one reason why people give to charity in the first place? Like a lot of people like overthink it. It's the reason why people give is because someone asked them to give. Like, that's like, it's that simple. And so when you think about, building out a peer-to-peer program, essentially what you're doing is you're creating this environment, this network of people to, turn one fundraiser into five fundraisers into 10, and so forth. And so I think it's one of those tools that like every fundraiser needs to have in their tool belt. It's not a fundraising program that you run, 365 days a year. It's usually seasonal, it's around giving days, around certain types of campaigns. I strongly believe that it is a tool that every fundraiser needs in their tool belt, because it's such a pivotal way to grow the donor base and to, sustain fundraising efforts throughout busier seasons of fundraising.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as a fundraiser, I know it is hard to ask for money, but the hardest thing is like, you have to ask. And, a lot of folks are willing and want to help out. And, kind of as part of that, I think another interesting thing that I'm seeing and have seen a lot of nonprofits ask about is, beyond like giving days, is kind of incorporating DIY peer-to-peer fundraising into kind of special personal events and holidays. Yep. I think one of the organizations that we work with, after someone signs up for an email or takes an advocacy action, they ask them to pledge their birthday to raise money for this organization. And at that point, it's a small ask to just, my birthday is in February, I support this organization. But then, leading up to it, it gives them kind of this toolkit to build a DIY fundraising campaign to support the organization. So that's another way to incorporate, peer-to-peer into your overall, fundraising and marketing programs. So for things like birthdays, or, if there's kind of holidays coming up, particularly for an organization working on, like civil rights or something like that, using those days to encourage folks to build their personal campaigns. It doesn't need to be a primary push of like fundraising, but often those become a fundraiser is hidden under those, like other ways to give, like below the fold. But by just like offering it kind of in those normal communications, we're finding folks are willing to do DIY fundraisers for important events, ask their friends. One of the cool things with the, Springboard and Funraise platform is being able to make it easy. And so that includes, being able to easily create Facebook fundraisers. So if I'm reading a newsletter and it's like, hey, would you be interested in, doing a Facebook fundraiser? And it's kind of all set up and it's already there. Whereas I may not know about it if it wasn't kind of promoted, more often.
Right.
So also seeing that incorporated more.
And yeah, and when we talk about optimizing or allowing technology to really optimizing the fundraising outcome, specifically with Facebook, what our data shows is when an individual peer-to-peer fundraiser connects their page to Facebook, they see an immediate $200 increase in their overall fundraising goal, right? So it's an extra $200 for every individual campaign just by connecting your page to Facebook. And really the big driver for that is you tap into Facebook's notification ecosystem, which your friends and your network, gets notified that you're raising for a particular cause. And so things like that. And I think that as we go into 23 and as we have these headwinds in front of us, I think that like if we look back on sort of just the recessions that in the past, the most recent, the Great Recession in 2008, like I think it's so important for nonprofits to understand that giving does not follow the public market, specifically the S&P, right? When we see in 2008 the S&P falls 40%, but giving only fell 7%. It's because people are still inspired and motivated to give because it's such an emotional aspect of, we're giving with emotion, not logic, right? So we saw this in the pandemic, and I think we're going to see this in 23. I think that giving will be recession resilient if nonprofits continue to focus on their fundraising programs. And I think that peer-to-peer is such a important strategy going into 23 as you think about your donor base and as you understand the potential threats to overall fundraising in general. It's generally going to be individuals who are highly invested in the markets who maybe don't have as much liquidity because of that. And so I think peer-to-peer is just such a great way to balance sort of your fundraising programs going into 23. I'd be curious. I know that you guys work with, large enterprise nonprofits. Is it hard to get them to move the needle on peer-to-peer? Do you see them wanting to prioritize it? I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts around how the enterprise nonprofit is thinking of peer-to-peer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I've seen in the past just some hesitancy to build peer-to-peer programs. Previously, it's been very labor intensive for nonprofits to, build campaigns, kind of promote it to fundraisers, really, really cultivate. And I'm not saying that there isn't any work, moving forward, but there has been a little bit of a shift to open it up and really kind of give the tools to their supporters and their fundraisers. But it's funny that it's smaller organizations that have actually been, looking to incorporate peer-to-peer more than larger organizations because they're looking at it, how do we make sure that we're really doing everything possible to capitalize on, the peer-to-peer program. But we have seen actually a number of larger organizations kind of rethink their peer-to-peer to make it easier for folks to just create pages, on their own and let them run with it, to promote it on social media and kind of let them run with it, as well as incorporate it into larger, giving days or giving campaign periods, understanding that it can be a really powerful tool, not only to raise money, but also to engage their existing supporters, in particular, as we're looking at kind of recession and uncertainty. It's a great way to retain your best supporters as well, in kind of building these communities. And, I know that just personally, like the organizations that I've fundraised for, I feel the kind of closest connection to, because I know that I've already asked my friends and I'm invested in making sure that, the organization is doing good work because I vouched for them. My friends have come on board because of that. And I want to, be able to continue to support them in different ways, even though I may not be able to, write a check right now. So it's also a great way to keep donors and kind of, instead of just asking them for the same amount every year, would you consider doing something different, like pledging your birthday and things like that?
Absolutely. And something, an interesting thing that we see is in our data is fundraisers. If an individual has fundraised, they're 4 times more likely to become a recurring donor or sustaining donor, right? And so as we think about retaining donors and nurturing donors, actually inviting them to fundraise on your behalf is a really solid way to actually retain and to keep them engaged because they're more bought in. Just like you said, like in your own case, when you fundraise for an organization, you feel a little bit more bought in than when just making a single donation. And so I think that that's an important aspect. I know in your guys's, you guys have shared some insight around monthly donors. I think are sustaining monthly donors. How they give 400% more to charity. Can you unpack that a little bit? Because I do think peer-to-peer fundraising is actually a really great way to attract new recurring donors. And so it has this snowball effect. And so just kind of curious if you could unpack what you guys are seeing in your data around that phenomenal growth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is providing an easy way to like give a smaller amount more spread out over time, might seem like initially like a smaller investment to me if I'm giving $5 as, over 12 months than over like $60 now. But what that really does is we see once folks sign up, and a lot of times, whether it's through credit card or, giving through ACH and, even these other, PayPal, Apple Pay, we're seeing folks that, remain sustaining donors for years and even decades. And it's not that, folks are forgetting that they're giving, but it's an ongoing relationship that is just has a lower burden of entry, basically, if you're giving, $5 a month, and I think we work with a lot of public media stations, and obviously, they've really shifted to focusing on sustaining giving. And that includes, monthly, but also offering other, sustaining options, whether it's like quarterly or annually, but just having this opt-in process of, being able to give and continue to give and support your organization just creates a much longer relationship. And I think it's also folks are recognizing, of course, how important these donors are, and making them feel bought into like a sense of community, and that you're a member or you're a guardian or kind of, legacy supporter or something like that. And I love seeing as part of that, like organizations that, are reaching out to monthly and, recognizing you, even if it's just like a plain text email that says, hey, you're a monthly donor, just giving you the inside scoop. Like that kind of cultivation just really makes my heart smile.
Absolutely.
And, I also really love, folks that are recognizing it. It used to be one of my pet peeves that in public media that they'd always ask me to become a monthly donor. And I'm like, I'm already a monthly donor. Like, what do I get for that? Offering kind of, pledge free streaming and things like that, I think are really cool. And so just having that a part of, peer-to-peer, I think is also both a great opportunity to kind of get that, $5 a month and have someone kind of bought into an organization and then continuing that cultivation with someone at that level so that you're really growing your support, so by not offering just that recurring giving, you're kind of really missing out both on those relationships and revenue.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was super insightful. One more question before we wrap it up. For any of the Springboard customers that are listening, Shannon, what would be the best way for them to activate this new integration and partnership that we have? What's the best way for them to approach that?
Sure. On our website, there's a number of ways to sign up, but of course, anyone who's an existing Springboard customer, they have great project managers that they know personally. And so reaching out to them, they're interested in peer-to-peer, happy to kind of help show them, what's available, and how to get them started. Everyone that we've talked to is really excited about it, both because it's really easy to create the campaigns, that are branded. I know a lot of organizations have been kind of frustrated with like piecemeal peer-to-peer platforms that either like aren't integrated to their CRM or don't look like their website, things like that. So it's just a really great offering to have this as part of their, bigger overall fundraising marketing platform.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for joining us today. We at Funraise are very excited to be partnering alongside you all, and we're excited to go into 23 and really help our mutual customers thrive and raise as much money as possible for their important causes. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome.